on whether a rate hike is in fact imminent. Care Ratings believes that it could be. ICRA believes that not for now. But there is consensus that a rate cut is completely out of the question unless growth collapses. That's the view there from the MPC minutes. But on to the other big headline that's coming from the GST front, and this one is an exclusive. It's been only a month since the government put in place an anti-profiteering watchdog, but it's already started to swing into action. We learned the Finance Ministry has issued notices to two companies. The first one is a Bareilly-based dealer of Honda Car India, and the second is Pyramid Infratech. It's a Gurgaon-based realty firm. These companies are under the government's lens for not passing on GST benefits to the consumer. Sources say that primary investigation against these entities has started, and findings of the probe will be sent to the National Anti-Profiteering Authority. We also learned that this may just be the tip of the iceberg and that the government may be in the process of issuing more notices, including perhaps even to an FMCG company. Joining us now to discuss this further, Rohan Shah, tax expert, and Pratik Jain of PwC India. Gentlemen, appreciate you joining us. The notice for seeking information and documents relating to application for contravention of the provisions of Section 171 of the Central Goods and Services Tax Act 2017. The first batch is out. Rohan Shah, your comments.
I think we've very firmly gone into phase 2 of GST. We are now in the phase of interpretation, implementation, and potentially seeing actions which could bring about imposition of penalties and the like. My one concern really is this, that you've got two sectors here. One, you're talking about an auto dealer, then you're talking about real estate. And in real estate, there was a circular issued in the June of 17, where the government said that it is firmly of the view that there is benefit in the nature of saving of credit. And as a result, you have to pass on those benefits. And that circular ended effectively by saying that if you don't pass it on, it will be profiteering under 171. Now, what you have is also, for example, in the case of restaurants, somewhere a view was taken that prices had to be cut and that people were not sort of doing it right. Now you have a whole system and a mechanism set up, which is a legal mechanism which has 3 or 4 stages, including arithmetic to be done by the director safeguards. And while you have this mechanism which is fact-finding, it's specific to a entity, and which should take 6 to 8 months, how is it that we are getting into this phase already where people are in a way being told under not so comfortable circumstances that you've got it wrong and you have to pass this on? I think this raises issues of process, because if you have an alternate process, people should go through it. It raises also issues in terms of saying, what if a person is not enjoying the sort of benefits you anticipate, and his business is not going to that benefit in the manner that you as government anticipate, does he not have a right to be represented and make his case to convince you whether he's doing something right or wrong? So I think, we are in a phase which is now more litigious. Having said which, I think there seems to be some element of pre-decision. People are being sort of labeled in a certain manner. And I just wish the process was that, we think you've got it wrong, you have a full opportunity, make your case, and we'll then come to a conclusion at the end of that exercise. I unfortunately think these are almost getting pre-decided in terms of the whole process.
Okay. All right, Pratik, would you agree there that we're now in phase 2 of the GST rollout, which is the more litigious phase, as Rohan Shah was pointing out? And also, do you believe, as Mr. Shah was pointing out, that there is almost a labeling or a pre-decision that's taken place already? In fact, the notice says a reference has been received from the Standing Committee on Anti-Profiteering to conduct a detailed investigation. Accordingly, it's been decided to initiate an investigation and collect evidence necessary to determine whether the benefit of the reduction of rate in tax has been passed on or not. And again, that brings to bear the question that Mr. Shah raised, anticipation of what the government expects the reduction should be and what a company expects the reduction ought to be.
Yes, and I think this is just the tip of the iceberg. I think there are many, many more companies who are going to receive these kind of notices over the next few months. And clearly there is a trust deficit between the industry and the government on this one, and these two sectors are quite complex. So let me just take 1 minute to explain. I mean, real estate, the GST rate is 12%, which is higher than what it was earlier. It was 8 to 9% for smaller projects, and high-end projects even lower earlier. So there the rates have actually gone up. But more importantly, for the existing projects which were going on from at that point in time, there is very limited credit that builder has. So credit will only come in for all the material purchase after 1st of July. So therefore, from a consumer standpoint, there is no other way but to bear the additional burden for the existing projects where substantial construction had already been done prior to 1st July. And on the car thing, I mean, as we're aware, on 11th of September, the cess was increased from 2 to 7% on bigger cars. And for smaller cars, even by government's own admission, there was hardly any benefit. And you spoke about a car dealer in Bareilly. I mean, it's very unlikely that one dealer has taken a position that he is not going to pass on the benefit and other dealers are passing on. I mean, market dynamics won't let that work. So in absence of precise guidelines and nuances of the industry, different sectors, it's going to be extremely difficult for the government to really establish that whether it has been passed on or not. And to Rohan's point, I think, yes, I think industry would be given a chance. While this is a notice, there would be a proper hearing which will take place, and law will take its own course. But it is going to spread like fire. I think in the next 6 months, we are going to see immense amount of litigation on this. Two things which immediately needs to happen. One is the guidelines need to come as to how the profit is expected to be passed on, and second, some kind of instructions to be issued to the authority at the ground level. Because I have seen letters written on Friday to say by Monday, if you don't reduce the price, we are going to go to anti-profiteering authority. And I don't think that's a right approach, which many officials are taking. So let's see how it goes, but enough and more will happen on this over the next few months.
So let's just take that point forward, Mr. Shah. In terms of the guidelines that Pratik was talking about, forget the mechanism. We have the mechanism in place, and DG safeguards and standing committee reference, and then finally the NPPA and so on and so forth. But in terms of the guidelines that Pratik was talking about, to provide clarity, what is it that you would look for? What would be the imperatives?
I think 4 or 5 things. The first and most important is this a analysis which is at a company level, is it at a locational level, or is it really at the level of individual products or individual SKUs, right? How do I sort of look at that? If it is at an SKU level, then how do I take certain benefits which are accruing at an institutional level, for example, certain credits or transitional credits, and how do I factor that in down to the level of sort of one particular SKU? Now, the other situation is, let's talk the real estate, right? In real estate, you're going to see 2 phases. There is one phase where construction of buildings is going on, where transitional credit is not available in the context of inputs already used prior to the 1st of July. But you will get them, thereafter. Now, how are we effectively going to account for these? Because there is, in that phase, actually no credit benefit. But what is happening is that the effective rate has from about 5.5% gone up almost to 12, but you haven't got a credit benefit. So you need to isolate that. The fourth factor, which is really most important, is how do you eliminate factors where there is a change in profit for commercial reasons other than GST? Because your focus here is to ensure that nobody profits unduly from GST. But in the makeup of price, there will be other commercial factors which are effectively getting into it. So you will need guidelines on all of this. The other situation is your calculation effectively happens through the DG safeguards. Now, I've appeared in a lot of safeguard proceedings. Like all of us, the DG safeguard can also get his arithmetic wrong. Now, if he gets it wrong, where do I go? Because I go before the national authority, I have a hearing. But ultimately, there is a arithmetical issue where he's the expert and my experts are telling me there's a divergence. So, how do we bridge that gap? And there is one issue which, really piques my interest is, suppose you today go on the basis that I'm getting a certain rate and a certain set of credits. Tomorrow, there is a piece of litigation where one state or more tells me that the rate I am taking, the lower rate is wrong, or the credit I'm taking is wrong. And as a result, in phase 1, I have pressure to pass through benefit. In phase 2, somebody will say you didn't actually have those benefits at all. So, you know, these are all open issues on what is admittedly a very difficult legislation, because Malaysia had its own problems with it. Australia, you know, has also struggled on a few issues. On what is admittedly a very difficult legislation, not only do we need more guidance and prescription, but I think we need to be a little more careful in holding a hand on what we want to proceed against and how and why.
Fair point. Pratik, let me very quickly end in 10 seconds. Is the nervousness now building up? I mean, A, there is a trust deficit issue. B, we were hoping for ease of doing business. C, the guidelines are not available, as you were pointing out. There's a lot of grey there. It's just been implemented, so everyone's grappling with it. Is the nervousness now building up?
Absolutely, and the nervousness is building up, and it's spreading. And I think, as I said, the government needs to do something very quickly in terms of the guidelines and instructions to the officers who are monitoring that on the ground as to how do they need to go about it. And I think you know, market dynamics should be allowed to play. I think we should not hurry it up. There is enough and more noise which has rightly been created on this. So I think we should just wait how it pans out rather than sort of really issuing a lot of notices at this point in time. But let's see how these two cases go on before concluding on this.
Okay. All right, gentlemen, Pratik Jain, Rohan Shah, appreciate you joining us here, decoding the first batch of notices that have been sent out by the government, initiating preliminary investigation as part of the anti-profiteering clause under the GST.